hello. How are you guys? We're back at it again. It's the senior lead show. I'm Coach Maiden. I'm hosting this show today, and today I have a guest from Nile Valley Foundation. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Awesome. How are you coping right now with COVID? Right now, how are you coping? Before we get into our conversation, I know you're a senior. So how are you coping with COVID right now?
Um, Personally, I am doing quite well,
Hmm.
but I do know that that is not the standard for most people who come from Africa,
Hmm.
because I have quite isolated case in terms of how long I have lived here, and therefore I have quite adjust to the Canadian living kind of standard. So it will be different for a lot of Africans, my age group, who just migrated here perhaps 10 or 15 years ago or a little bit more.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine even with the cold too in Canada. Sometimes it gets very uncomfortable. So today on the show, we're just gonna be chatting about COVID. I know that you're a big advocate on Nile Valley Foundation. Um, can you enlighten me about how you started the Nile Valley Foundation and what's going on with it? What is it? Because a lot of people will be want to ask that question before we get into the other questions.
Oh, the Nile Valley Foundation is a non-profit organization established here in Edmonton 12 years ago. And we are specifically dedicated to telling the Africa diaspora history since our arrival in the Western Hemisphere, which is about 1619. And so we did, in the earlier years, focus on early Black settlement in Edmonton and Alberta. That was our early project. We did a research work with Dr. Efua Cooper from
Hmm.
the Harvey University, program sponsored by the Edmonton Heritage Council to research about how Black people settle in Alberta and in particular Edmonton.
Hmm.
So that was our first project. And then our next major project has been Africa Diaspora celebration of Black History Month,
Hmm.
which has been very well attended. Usually we do have it at City Hall. And then our major project has been the Africa Diaspora History Library, the first of its kind, perhaps in all of Canada,
Hmm.
which is located at the Edmonton Archives at the Prince of Wales or Prince of Wales Emirates in Edmonton here. So we've been actually also quite instrumental in Alberta accepting Black history as an official celebration. So it's been quite an achievement for the Nile Valley Foundation and the men and women who have come this far with us on this project.
Wow, that's really amazing. It's good to see seniors doing something, for us with our history, so that we can actually go back and even like the library. So, is the library open to everyone? Anyone can go to the library and check it out.
You cannot borrow book to take out, but you can sit there and read a page or two.
Mhm.
You can call the Edmonton archives and they can lead you to the library.
Wow, that's amazing. So what else do the foundation do? It's just is it for seniors per se, or you guys go with the youth, the new generation, right now? Is it seniors only, or it includes everyone?
Could you frame your question again?
I said your now Valley Foundation. Does it include youth too, or is it for seniors only?
I laugh a little bit. I'm the only senior.
Okay.
I'm the only senior of the group. About 95% of the men and women that I've worked with are mostly students. and a few academic in terms of professors who always do presentations for our programs. But majority of our workers or volunteers are students, actually.
Oh, students. Okay,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's amazing. I'll have to come out and check it out.
Anytime, anytime.
I'll probably learn at two or three things. I don't know. Because I'm always learning every day. So I'm always excited to get new information about our heritage. Um, that way I can educate my kids too, right?
Well, I always say, if you don't know where you're coming from, probably you don't know where you're heading. So it is important.
Exactly, exactly. Awesome. So with the COVID, so we're gonna talk about COVID. You as a senior, right? You've been around for a longer time, and like you said, COVID hasn't impacted you on a bigger level. But what is your take on the new generation? What advice would you give us as a young generation? What should we be doing right now?
I think that when you look at the magnitude of the COVID-19
Mhm,
on communities, and especially the African diaspora community, and specifically those we refer to as seniors, it's quite devastating. There are so many factors that quite often we don't seem to focus on that because we've never traveled this path before. We've never have old people with us in a foreign land, and therefore we don't know their reaction to a tragedy like COVID-19.
mhm,
And so we are in a process where we are beginning to learn for the first time what are the emotional issues, what are the traumatic experiences, and why is it different than those of us who may be in the mainland in Africa.
mhm,
And those are the things that we need to look at, especially on our seniors, because being an African born in the mainland and coming here to experience um, uh, a problem like COVID-19 is quite devastating at
mhm,
so many levels. If you are born in Africa, in such a situation, you would like to be in Africa. That would be your wish. And if you are a man, it's different from even if you are when you are a woman, because women are quite comfortable more than the African men in terms of the seniors when they come over here.
mhm,
Because traditionally in Africa, women get married and they go wherever their husband is. Men traditionally will remain and they bring the woman in.
mhm.
So men are more traditionally deeply rooted on the land from which we came, from which we come from. So for an older African man outside of Africa, you are constantly yearning to be back in Africa.
Yes.
And so with the COVID-19, your stress is different. It's not just surviving it, but it's thinking about if you were to die today, why would you die and be buried in a strange land? And this alone is heavy on African elder. And it's part of our tradition, it's part of what we are.
Mhm,
We are closer to the land from which we came. And it will be our hope that when you die, you get buried on the land from which you came. And this is quite different for Africans and is very deep. You have to understand what it means to be an African to understand what is it that I'm saying, that
mhm,
when you are an elder, you want to be buried in your hometown. You want to be buried from your tribal hometown.
mhm.
You want your children and grandchildren to visit your tomb at some point. And these are all part of who we are. So um, the African elders at this point, I believe, will be experiencing different kind of stress and emotional distress
Mhm.
and everything else that goes with it. But they may not have people who understand the context in which their emotion is wounded, if I may say so. And then we don't have the kind of people who understand where they're coming from because if you don't understand the culture, your reaction will be, oh, what happens if you are buried here? It's okay. When you are dead, you are dead. But as an African, our culture is deeper than that. We believe that the dead is always with us.
Yes.
And so we rely upon them, we call upon them. And it have nothing to do with your religion. It have something to do with who we are as Africans.
Yeah, where we come
and so this is one of the first things that I think we need to have serious conversations with the elders and how they are feeling, especially the men. We feel much pain and also be missing their homeland. So especially when they are not savvy technologically and they cannot use social media as most of younger people could do. And they are isolated in their homes and they can't walk to the next corner street to meet, somebody their age group to, sit down and talk about life and, what they are experiencing and, just basic things that they have in common. So these are some of the things that seniors battle with if you are an African senior in this part of the world.
Exactly. I can imagine because like especially like with the technology, right? Like right now, a lot of seniors the means of communication sometimes, it's always great when you can spend time with your grandmother or your grandfather in the same room. But with the situation of COVID now, it's just that, sometimes you have to call them and you cannot see them. And the other question I would ask you would be, what's your take on the vaccine? Do you think most seniors should get the vaccine, or have you gotten your vaccine yourself?
Pardon me?
Have you gotten your vaccine yourself?
Oh, getting it myself is actually personally a private matter for me. But I think that I am not qualified to say go get it or do not get it. But what I know is that there is a little bit hesitant in members of our community, and it's based upon our history with popular culture and what we have experienced. So that is the hesitancy. But I believe that with some kind of education and people coming from the health ministry and speaking to us about the safety of the vaccine itself and giving us the assurance that all is going to be well and we don't have to worry about some kind of hidden dangers that some of us might have based upon the history of Black people in the New World. So those are some of the issues. And then those who are a little bit older, they are wondering if perhaps they can survive the vaccine if they have other medical conditions. And so those are some of the issues that they want to be assured from the health communities. Somebody might have high blood pressure, somebody might have cancer, diabetes, and they may be on several medications, and therefore they don't know how their immune system is strong enough to to handle the new vaccine. So those are some of the concerns that a lot of seniors of African descent may have at this time. And there's the need for us to actually talk to them, one-on-one, because when you do Zoom, most of the African elders, they are not used to this social media stuff.
Technology,
So we have to find a way where we can meet them face to face, because that's the language they speak. That's the only thing they understand. But when you invite them to a Zoom, for them, it's like a movie. So we have to find a new way of reaching out to those people in their communities and having a community forum where we will be there live in person and observing the COVID restrictions and guidelines. So I think those are some of the things that we are missing. And doing a lot of Zoom and webinar is for the younger generation. And so we need to actually do better reaching out to the older generation. I think would be the number one thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's something we have to work on because I know that, like, yeah, the technology, like you said, some seniors don't even know how to go on Zoom, and it's always nice when you can actually have a face-to-face conversation, right? Instead of through a computer. There's a better connection, I think. when you do that. Another question for you would be, right now in COVID, what advice would you give to whether a senior or a person who's struggling right now? Let's say, I know that there's a lot of mental illness right now, which is going on. People are isolating, and they like. What advice would you give someone, to just be able to push through, especially through this tough time we're going through right now? What advice would you give them as a senior?
It's still about how we structure our programming. Services like the one you are working on and other COVID-related services that we may have in our community. To serve a community, you have to understand the community you serve and their special needs. As a Canadian, a lot of people from the African continent don't realize the privilege we have here as Canadians. Because Canada is the only nation in the Western Hemisphere that allows people to come and be themselves. In other words, this is not a melting pot, so that the behavior, the way of life is standard. But you can come here and be yourself, and that's the privilege. So we are the only country in the Western Hemisphere who have a multicultural ministry that we actually help people to maintain their culture. And what good is culture when we are asked to bring it and you don't use it? So we have tremendous privilege, but we haven't come to the realization that we can reach out to our people in the context of who they are. And they don't have to be subjected to any new way of life. And so those are some of the things that we, the service providers, need to recognize. Let's say if you want to send somebody to a Somali community, for example, you need to send somebody from East Africa who understands the East African culture.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you want to send somebody to West Africa, you have to understand how culture is in West Africa. If you want to send somebody to North Africa and to South Africa, so we are out of many one people, but we have cultural differences that what may not be tolerated in East Africa may be tolerated in West Africa. So it's about actually designing programs for each of the regions of Africa so that we can reach them in their cultural base. We can speak the language they understand so that they don't feel threatened or afraid to express themselves. We need to speak their language. In other words, our services should be culturally relevant to the people we serve. And that's, I think, one of the shortcomings of most of the African community associations in Edmonton. We don't realize that we serve special people. So we pretend like we're going out to serve everybody. The point is, the government is sponsoring you to service and support your people. That's the challenge. Each group will service, and that's what the beauty of Canada. We are a rainbow nation. So don't go out there pretending you are out there to service everybody. That's not your job. Your job is to understand the community you serve, to know them. What are their value systems? What makes them feel stressed? And it's different across the board. We need to actually go back to the drawing board and answer the question, who do we represent?
Exactly.
And that's why you have Chinese community, you have Ukrainian community, you have Portuguese community, you have Irish community, you have Japanese community. That's who we are in Canada. But Africans have not recognized this tremendous opportunity. So we go out there, you catering for everybody. You can't cater for the German. You don't know their culture.
Exactly.
So whatever is it that you're trying to do, be realistic.
Wow.
Speak the language of the people you serve. And that's what the government is all about. That's what we call multiculturalism.
Exactly.
That's the meaning diversity. People have to love you for who you are, not because you look like them or you speak like them.
Yeah.
Be yourself. That is the essence of Canada. And most Africans do not know this. So I am hoping that your group will design a program that is custom made for the African community seniors and know that their issues, what they are facing, is culturally based and therefore is different. So do not send a social worker from, India to a community elder
Yeah.
who needs somebody to talk to from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
The two different cultures. You cannot understand me. So you can't help me. So those are some of the challenges that I believe, having been here for the past 20 years in the community, 12 years in the community, I feel that the community organization from the African community do not understand their role and who they're supposed to serve. Because that's what the government, the federal, the provincial, the municipal, that's what they expect from you. If you get some money, it's for your community. Because nobody will send you to the Chinese community to go there and go and talk to them. You can't.
They send the Chinese.
That's it. That's the beauty of this Canada, this country, this nation.
Yeah. So
I would like us to specifically design a program understanding the elders in our community and the challenges they may be facing at this time. Like what I'm saying is, if you are an elder, you are worried about the rest of the family in Africa because culturally we are an extended family system. We are not like, you and your wife and your family and that's it. No.
It's always
you worry about your uncle, your aunt, your brothers and his children, everybody. So that's who we are. We are an extended family system. So these things put pressure on a lot of the seniors, and when they are wondering, can they survive the COVID enough to return to the land of their birth before they pass? That's stressful.
Exactly. And the thing is that we have to identify those problems, right? That they're there and be able to help our seniors so that the stress can be a little bit better, they can be relieved from that stress, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a very good point, and I hope those guys who are listening right now are taking a lot of notes about this. That way we can actually go in the community and help out and actually finding the need for our African seniors so that they can be they can live their retirement in amazing home in an amazing way, right? And another question for you here, because I know we're almost coming to 30 minutes. This, I'm learning so much today, and I'm like, wow, I'm like bombarded with so many questions for you. I hope we get another session to do this because I know like we only got 30 minutes for this show. But another question for you. Since you've been in Canada, you said you've been in Canada for 20 years?
Oh, no, I've been in Canada for the past 50 years.
50
I live
years.
in Toronto. I just moved here 12 years ago.
Okay. Oh, you moved here 12 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been in Canada for 20 years. And
I've been in Canada for 50 years.
Oh, 50 years. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time. That's
Yeah.
a really long time. That's a long time. So you probably have a lot of information about how the Canadian system work. So the question would be for you, like, as a senior, right? What's your take on, I know African seniors, they don't want to go to like old folks homes and whatever because sometimes it's you don't socialize and all that and whatever. What's your take on that? What should we do for our seniors to be able to take care of them better?
I think that we need to be having serious conversations on how we retain that aspect of our tradition and culture. The idea that most Africans will have children with the hope that they will look after them when they are old. It is our natural insurance. And so in North America, people have insurance. Now we don't have insurance. The only insurance is having children. So this is typical of Africa. You have children, you look after them, you educate them with the hope that the investment you are putting in them, they will pay you back when they are older, when you are older. So that's our culture. And you may look at it, if you are not understanding who we are and the basis of the African culture. When we have an older person in the home, there's law and order. A lot of things go right. But if you're looking at it in a European or North American context, you think, oh, by having my mother in the house is an issue. By having my father in the house is an issue. then it's because you don't understand who you are. Because if your father comes from Africa and is over 70 and you put him in a nursing home, and he have never been to school, therefore he can't speak English properly. Do you know the traumatic experience in isolation that he will not be able to relate to the people there? So it's like putting a chimpanzee in a cage in North America and thinking that you are providing the best service.
Wow.
The chimpanzee would rather be in the forest where he can talk to other chimpanzees. So the same thing happened. Most Black parents that is taken to nursing home, they constantly praying to God that, listen, God, I'm done with this earth. Maybe you have to take me out. Because they want to see their grandchildren. They want their grandchildren to come from school and say, hello, Grandpa, how was your day? I mean, this is their medicine. And so for us, this is very, very important part of our family. This is how we have survived hundreds of thousands of years, on this planet Earth. Is the family togetherness. That every home in Africa, there's a grandparent. Every home. And if you go to an African home and there's no old person, there's no spirit in that home.
Exactly.
So it is very important.
Wow. Yeah, that's very powerful. I hope you guys are watching. You're taking notes today. Well, yeah, I'm just coming to an end. We're just coming to an end of our show, and coming to think of what you have said today, it educate me and the people who are watching. I hope that you guys take some notes and be able to go in the community and help the seniors, be able to communicate with the seniors, just giving back, right? Giving back, because the idea is to make sure that our seniors get a comfortable life and enjoy it, not just to suffer or go through traumatic stress. So any words of motivation before we close today? Like any advice you want to leave with somebody today, they should be able to take home with them?
I think that I speak profoundly on behalf of all old people because I am a member of the old community. And by God's grace, for now, I can, be a little bit active. But I know a lot of people who are not as strong as I may be to go up and down and, go and do some of the things that they may like to do. So my last words would be for those of us who are in the community service to begin to have serious conversations. And if you are a young man or a young woman, remember the idea to look after your uncle, your father, your grandfather at home here in this country is the greatest blessing. And as an African, I take a cue from the idea that the service to our parents is the greatest commandment in Scripture. That with all the commandments in the Scripture, no commandment has a blessing as the blessing you get when you honor your parents. So I will call upon those of you who think, old people are a problem. It's not a problem, it's a joy.
It's a blessing.
Because if you don't have somebody old in your family, you are nowhere grounded. And so for us, we take our cue. When you see an old person, gray hair, it assures you of your place. Then you know that there's continuity. So if you live this long, you also have the chance to live that long. And that's why Africans have fascination with older people. So please, my advice is at this very difficult time in our history, in this part of the world, visit old people, speak to them in the language they understand, their traditional language. If you're from Sudan, speak the language. If you're from West Africa, speak the language. If you're from North, if you're from East, speak the language, because it is the food to their soul to hear someone speak your language with you. So those are some of the things. Please visit an older person, especially the men. The women always have something to do. The men easily get stressed because there is not much for them to do at home. So please, fellow Africans, reach out to the old people. We are here because of them.
Wow. Guys, you heard that, guys. I'm so blessed today to have you on the show, Mr. Koney. And I want to thank you so much for taking your time. I know you're a busy man with the foundation, and you have so much things going on. And I want to thank you so much for taking your time to come on the show.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I hope that God will give you the strength. I'm glad that there are a lot of young people to take the baton from where we, the older ones, we hand over power to you. So more power to you, and more grace to your elbow.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, guys. We come to end at the end of our show. I want to thank you guys for spending the last 30 minutes with us. Until next time, thank you.